I'm your pocket filler, the parlay killer, the Northside thriller. Start the broadcast, subscribe with a smash, the Gorilla Sports Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome in Gorilla Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bulpin, and it's Wednesday, November the 27th. All right, we got Thanksgiving football for tomorrow, and it starts early, so I wanted to get this podcast out for you on Wednesday night so you can get the best numbers you can. I will not be doing a Twitter Spaces live with my boy, Jay Webb. He's an American lad. He lives out in Colorado, so he's got a lot of family stuff and travel and stuff, so we're going to give him the week off, and we're going to break down a couple of plays that I like. Guys, we are smashing this NFL season. I gave out 8 plays last week for free. We went 6-2 again. Monster. For the last 4 weeks, we're hitting at 73.5% over our last 4 weeks. That's a great number. All right, let's get into some plays. Let's go to my favorite game of the week, and we're going to the Detroit and Chicago game, the early game. And we're going to take Jahmyr Gibbs over 71.5 rushing yards. Now, I found that at FanDuel. I see that DraftKings have it around 73.5, so I would get on this early, and I'll tell you the reasons why. Now, Chicago gives up the 8th most rushing yards to the running back position, so that's a decent spot. Jahmyr Gibbs is averaging 80.5 yards a game on the year. And that's splitting carries with David Montgomery kind of as the 1B. David Montgomery starts the game and finishes the game. He is the Knuckles in this Sonic and Knuckles. He's the smashback. Now, David Montgomery didn't finish the game last week. He has a shoulder injury. He only ended up with 8 carries to Jahmyr Gibbs' 21. Now, he's been limited at practice so far this week. So let's be honest, it's Thanksgiving Thursday at home in Detroit. David Montgomery's most likely going to play, but it's only going to take one big hit or something to get him knocked out of this game, or they just kind of pull back his rushing attempts altogether and kind of give Jahmyr Gibbs the bulk of the carries. So honestly, even if Monty wasn't playing in this game, I would still like this number for Jahmyr Gibbs, but I love it that he's kind of hobbled. The last 4 running backs versus Chicago have all covered this number. Aaron Jones went for 106 last game, Josh Jacobs 76, Ramondre Stevenson 74, James Conner 107. So they're all smashing over this number, and none of these guys is Jahmyr Gibbs. So give me Jahmyr Gibbs over 71.5 rushing yards. My next play is in this same game, and I like Keenan Allen over 49.5 receiving yards. Again, I found that one on FanDuel. Now, Detroit is an absolute pass funnel. They give up the 2nd most receiving yards to the wide receiver position, the most targets, and the most receptions. Now, Chicago is a 9.5-point underdog, which means they're going to have to pass their way to stay in this game and to keep pace with this nasty Detroit offense. Now, he's coming off his best game of the year. He went 9 for 86 and a touchdown versus a Vikings secondary, which is also beatable, very similarly ranked to Detroit. So he smashed versus them. And it wasn't just that he went 9 for 86. It was his team-leading 15 targets last game. Caleb Williams, when he needed a play, he looked to Keenan Allen every single time. 15 targets. That is huge. So we're looking for 49.5 receiving yards on 15 targets. That is definitely doable. Now, the last time Keenan Allen played versus the Detroit Lions was last year on the Chargers, and he went 11 catches for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. We're looking for 49.5. Give me Keenan Allen over 49.5 receiving yards. All right, guys, we're going back to that sneaky play where we're going to take Detroit minus 2.5 in the second quarter. Now, I found that at DraftKings at minus 130. I prefer that than the minus 3.5 at minus 108 on FanDuel. I much prefer that minus 2.5. All we need is a field goal. Now, we came off this play. I found this play 2 weeks ago, but we came off it last week. 2 weeks ago, Jacksonville was a 14.5-point underdog. So they were 3.5-point underdog in the second quarter. That makes sense. They ended up smashing them 21-3 in the second quarter, so we won that bet. So last week I looked at it again. However, they were 7.5-point road favorites versus Indy, but still 3.5-point favorites in the second quarter. The math didn't make sense. I didn't like it, so I passed. However, they still ended up smashing 14-3, so it would have won the bet, but that's okay. We passed on it. Doesn't cost you anything to pass. So we're going to go back to it this week. Now, at minus 2.5, all we need to do is win by a field goal. Detroit has covered this in 8 of their last 9 games. They have won the second quarter by a mile, beating teams 21-3, 21-0, 17-3. I won't go through the list, but 8 of their last 9 games they have smashed in the second quarter, which kind of makes sense. I've talked about this before. In the first quarter, they're very vanilla. They run the ball a ton. which makes perfect sense because in the second quarter, all of the play action works beautifully. All the safeties move up, the linebackers move up. Here comes another run, play action, Jamison Williams over the top, bomb, touchdown. So honestly, I think this could happen absolutely again. Now let's go over to Chicago side. They have lost the second quarter in 4 of their last 5 games, and not against great teams. They lost 14-3 to Minnesota, 10-3 to New England, 14-9 versus Arizona, 3-0 versus Washington. And this is the Detroit Lions we're talking about. And we're going to take Detroit minus 2.5 in the second quarter. Love that play. All right, let's get on to the Miami and Green Bay game. We're going to go to Jonnu Smith, and we're going to take him over 45.5 receiving yards. I found that one at DraftKings. Now, Jonnu Smith has been an absolute monster over his last 7 games. He's averaging 65 yards a game over his last 7. That's 20 yards of value, and that's a 7-game sample size. That's not a little bit. He's covered this in 5 out of his last 7 games. His last 2 games have been insane. He went 9 for 87 and 6 for 101, scoring 3 touchdowns over his last 2 games. He is a massive part of this offense. I didn't realize he has 48 catches on the year. Tyreek Hill has 49 and Devon Achane has 49. He has 1 less catch than their superstar wide receiver and their superstar running back. So he's a big part of this offense. We're looking for 45.5 receiving yards. I like this look. And my last play of the day is I'm going to go to the other side, and we're going to take Green Bay's tight end. We're going to take Tucker Kraft over 31.5 receiving yards. Now, he's covered this in 3 out of his last 4 games. He's averaging 36.5 yards a game on the season. So the whole sample size of the whole season. And he's got a good matchup versus this Miami team. They give up the most targets and the second most receptions to the tight end position. We took Hunter Henry last week versus the same matchup to get over his receiving prop. That won for us. And like I said, the week before, they let Brock Bowers go 13 for 126 and a touchdown. And as I said last week, Tucker Kraft is no Brock Bowers, but we're not looking for 126 yards. We're looking for 32. So give me Tucker Kraft over 31.5 receiving yards. All right, guys, we got 5 plays going for this Thursday. We are smashing NFL football. If you guys are rocking with me,